So welcome tonight. I'm Terry Hall, the founder and director of Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom, or Texas TURF. And this is our grassroots training session where we are trying to raise up citizen lobbyists to take back transportation in particular for the taxpayers. We're going to go through a whole lot of information. We're going to have this up on our website and have the slides that I'm going over tonight available to you. So don't panic too much. And we also have some pads of paper and pens for you to take notes if that's helpful. And you can even write down, what slide number we're on or whatever, and you can go back and refer to it if that's helpful as well. But we're really excited about this. We've had lots of requests for this, and the reason why we're taping it is so that those around the state that can't make it to San Antonio regularly for our meetings can benefit from how it is we can track legislation. And this applies really to any issue area, not just transportation. This is just plain how the legislature works. First of all, where do we begin with this maze of navigating through the legislative process? We actually have a glossary of terms, many of them, on our website at texasturf.org. And then I'm going to go through what's our agenda anyway. You also have a printed flyer, and it's also available by PDF link under the Grassroots Action Center on our Texas TURF website, where you can download the PDF of our legislative agenda for this session. There's 15 items that are key pro-taxpayer things that need to, and reforms that need to take place, or public protections that need to be put into law. So a lot of that is our agenda, but we will talk about some more broader issues tonight to give you an idea of where we're going with what is it that the taxpayers have been asking for these last, at least in our case, 5 years. So what's the why behind our agenda? And then how do we get our agenda accomplished? Both legislative, legal, and political, well, actually all three avenues we're going to discuss tonight, mostly focusing on the legislative, though. We're just going to barely touch the legal and political at this session. Okay, so on our glossary of terms, if you go to the Texas TURF website, and we'll be going out to the website in just a minute, there's a section on there, a tab called the Grassroots Action Center. And I try to keep that up to date throughout the session so you can follow certain key bills, the authors of those bills, and where they're at in the process. We also have tabs of key committee members and all the players involved in issues involving transportation. So for instance, it'll have a link over to the House Transportation Committee and all the members, and the Senate Transportation Committee and all its members. It also has a link on there for you to find your own legislator. It brings you to the link in the tab where you just put in your zip code, and it gives you all your legislators. Now the key thing to remember with that is that we're looking at the Texas legislature. Okay, so it's going to give you your members of Congress, your U.S. senators, I guess I need to call them that, like Kay Bailey Hutchison and John Cornyn. But what you're looking for the purposes of the state legislature is you want your state representative and your state senator. Those are the people that you need to contact during the legislative session here in Texas. Here's the Texas TURF website. If you go to the Grassroots Action Center, right now I'm on the home page, you'll see at the very top is our legislative agenda for 2011. And when you press the here, it'll take you to a link and it'll download the PDF for you. It talks about how you can contact your representatives. There's a link right here that will take you to that. And then this is the number to the Capitol switchboard. I do this all the time, especially when I'm in the car and can't look up a bunch of numbers. I just call the Capitol switchboard and they will put you through to any representative there at the Capitol. So if you don't know a specific member's phone number, and this is what I do, like if I'm on the radio and I want to get people calling their reps, obviously you can't rattle off 181 different numbers. So this number is all you have to tell everybody. It's real easy, 463-4630, and of course it's 512. So you can call this number at any time to get your legislator's phone number. And even if you don't know which one you need to ask for, if you give them your zip code, they'll look it up for you and get you to your right representative. So it's really user-friendly and not too difficult to contact your representatives. Then when you're tracking key bills, we're going to go over the general overview of the flow of a bill in just a minute. But we also have the ability to go to Texas Legislature Online. This is going to be, it's right up here right now. This is going to be a key spot for you to track anything having to do with the legislature. This is the public way to follow bills, committee hearings, notices and reports, and the journal of record votes and things like that. So we have links to the legislators' committees and the schedule for all the bills right here. And then you can see we've already started our bill tracker for the 82nd legislature, which is for the 2011 session. I've only marked the good bills so far. I'm still trying to work on all the details for the eminent domain bill and some of the other ones being filed. This first one, of course, is McClendon. HB stands for House Bill. SB stands for Senate Bill. So this is a House bill, meaning it originated in the House. And Representative McClendon, this is her bill about abolishing the Transportation Commission of appointees and replacing it with a single elected commissioner. Then we have some other good bills. Another one by her. This is the one that was vetoed by the governor last session that was going to stop TxDOT from using our taxpayer money to do ad campaigns to talk us into toll taxes. It was basically promoting toll roads, the Trans-Texas Corridor, particularly public-private partnership contracts that sell our highways to the highest bidder at Wall Street that now charges 75 cents a mile to use our public roads. So that puts an end to it, and we're going to try and get that bill passed and pass the governor this time. Then Representative Lyle Larson, who's a freshman, House Bill 664. This is a wonderful bill. We're very excited about it. You might have heard it on the radio this morning. They had me on WAI about this. And that was to ensure that elected officials are the only ones who have voting powers on MPOs. Metropolitan Planning Organization, that's, let me go out to that really quickly. If you go up to the side where all the tabs are, over here, on the left-hand side of our website, you can see all the tabs. We're right now in the Grassroots Action Center. If you go down to glossary or FAQs, which stands for frequently asked questions, that will take you to a lot of the definitions of these things. And if you look on here, it's got some of the key things. And so MPO will explain it for you because we use a lot of acronyms in transportation, and this will hopefully help you navigate some of that. Metropolitan Planning Organization was established by the federal government to guide where, or basically they allocate where our federal gas taxes go, and by de facto they also allocate where our state gas tax money goes. And if a road's going to be tolled or not, it's an MPO that has to decide that, thumbs up, thumbs down. So they're the ones who give the final say on this stuff. Okay, so with that, we're back to the citizens' agenda. What is our agenda anyway? This would be, starting at the top, reforming the agency itself, and that is we want a sunset bill that provides real reform, not more appointees, in fact having even fewer appointees for the governor to manipulate his agenda. So we would like a sunset bill that mandates efficiency at TxDOT, like abolishing the Transportation Commission, giving us elected leadership that answers to the taxpayers directly. Also something called zero-based budgeting. We're going to really push for that, especially when we're facing a $27 billion shortfall in our state budget. It's incumbent upon a lot of these government agencies, not just TxDOT in my opinion, they need to go down to zero and then justify every single expense and their line item of their entire budget. Because what happens in government is they take last year's or last session, whatever, last biennium's budget, and then add, 5 or 10% for CPI or whatever, and just keep padding the budget. Well, you don't have the same number of capital expenditures every single biennium session, and a lot of times that's how they just feed all the waste and bureaucracy. So that's one of the things we want is a zero-based budget. They did kind of a form of it back in 2003 when the last time that we had a really big budget gap. So we're going to ask them to do it again this year. And then also put in an inspector general. This would be for people inside TxDOT to be able to go to an inspector general without fear of losing their job if they find that there's some kind of waste, fraud, or abuse taking place within the agency. And right now, yours truly seems like it's the inspector general some days because, again, I just got contacted by another TxDOT employee last night of stuff that's going on inside the agency and they don't know who to tell because they're fearful for their jobs. So we need a real inspector general that can actually have authority to do something besides, file a lawsuit or what have you, So that's another big reform that we can put into place. Okay, then we want to stop any and all toll conversions. This means when they take our already paid for freeways and convert them into toll roads. So they're making you buy back a road you've already built and paid for. It's a double tax. Clearly it needs to be off the table. There's loopholes in the law that allow it to happen, even though Rick Perry told you during the debates that it was illegal for you to convert an existing highway into a toll road. Well, of course, we all know the story there. Then, number 2, affordable transportation through ending diversions from our gas tax. And not just diversions to the gas tax. We found out about a pot of money last year where the vehicle sales tax money, that when you buy a car, you are taxed on the sale of that car. And all that money has been going into general revenue, funding general government instead of going to roads. That represents a $2 to $3 billion pot of money. That's like equivalent of doubling, even tripling the money that comes to our region without ever having to raise a tax, by simply prioritizing the money and the taxes we already pay. So they can't have any credibility or try to come to us with a local option gas tax or anything else they want to do by raising taxes and fees, which we'll talk about the difference between tolls and user fees in a little bit, because the toll is a tax the way that they're doing it in Texas. So nonetheless, we shouldn't have to pay a dime more for our roads when they're not prioritizing the money that we're already giving them. So we need to end those gas tax diversions, as well as the vehicle sales tax money needs to return to transportation. Then we want to end the privatization of our public infrastructure through these things called public-private partnerships. Sometimes they're called P3s. In Texas, they call them comprehensive development agreements. Isn't that crazy? What kind of name is that? Gobbledygook. CDA for short. Also these innovative financing schemes, which we'll get into a little bit more detail later. And then number 4, we've got to stop the debt spiral and prevent our pension funds from being invested in these risky toll projects. What we're finding is that so many of these toll projects are going belly up. Guess who's going to bail them out? They're going to say, oh, we can't let all these retirees, or and rightly so, we can't let all these teachers not have their retirement money, but who's going to fill the gap ultimately if they have no money in the fund? You and I are going to have to bail that out. So we want to prevent them taking our pension fund and putting them into these risky toll road schemes that are failing all over the country. And then the debt spiral we'll get into a little bit more later too, because the numbers are staggering. Number 5, of course, they keep telling us the TTC is dead, the Trans-Texas Corridor. It is not dead until they make it dead by taking it out of the Transportation Code once and for all. They've had the opportunity last session. They didn't do it, so they need to get it done this session, or they have no credibility whatsoever to keep saying that there's no Trans-Texas Corridor anymore. Then number 6, we want real eminent domain reform. So far, the eminent domain bill that's been filed, which is SB 18 by Senator Estes and Duncan, it is not a good bill at all. It's going to actually remove the requirement that it be a governmental entity that takes your land, and now give it to even a private entity that can come in and take your land for a quote public use, and then the private entity will be able to profit from it directly. So that's literally taking your land and conferring it on another private operator. It's all about whoever has the most power and money wins in this game. So we want one that has a stronger definition of public use, prohibits any takings for economic development, period, including blight, and mandates fair market, good faith bids, and just compensation for diminished access, among other things. So that's what you might call the citizens' agenda for transportation. Here's the why: because it's a double tax. Innovative financing, by the way, is not free market. It's government-sanctioned monopolies, and it's risky financing schemes that got Greece into the mess they're in and got us into the mess we were in with our banking crisis and our subprime mortgage crisis. It's a multi-leveraged debt bubble, which is, again, extremely financially risky. The P3s, the public-private partnerships, have non-compete provisions in them that will guarantee congestion on our free lanes for at least a generation or more, 50 years at a time. Although they've tried to bring down the non-competes to 30 years, like that makes a big difference. But nonetheless, it's going to be a generation. It equals public money for private profits. It's eminent domain for private gain, and the Trans-Texas Corridor threatens private property rights and our sovereignty. Toll roads, at the end of the day, equal a failed policy. Remember, the legislators were sold a bill of goods in some ways in 2003. They were told that this new toll wave was going to solve all their revenue shortfalls, because over time, the gas tax, even though for a while the driving in Texas was going up, so they never really felt the pinch of inflation eating into the gas tax dollars. Well, now driving's been flat for the last 5 years. So now they're really starting to feel the pinch that we have diminishing returns, so to speak, on our gas tax because it hasn't been raised in 20 years. So because of that, they use this as an excuse to come to us for tolling. Well, they thought tolling was going to be the silver bullet to get them out of their revenue shortfall problem and to supposedly end congestion. They've done neither. We're now over $20 billion in debt for roads. We had zero debt for roads when Rick Perry took office, folks. And by the time they sold the first bonds, it's only been 5 years since they sold the first bonds. In 5 years' time, we are $20 billion in the hole. Now that's $12 billion on the state level, at least $8 billion in off-budget deficit at the local toll authorities. For the first $6 billion in state bonds alone, it will cost Texas taxpayers $21 billion to pay back with interest. That's for only the first $6 billion, and we're $20 billion in debt. So we're talking about heaps and heaps and heaps of money. I call it the debt spiral.